Hey everyone, welcome to the porch, the people, and the pen, where we share real stories about real people and the real lives they lived. I'm so glad you're here. Today's story is one that I've been carrying with me for a very long time, one that kept me warm long before I understood why. We all have them, those objects that hold more than they should: a photograph, a recipe card, a piece of jewelry passed down. Things that are valuable not because of what they cost, but because of what they carry. For my family, it was quilts, heavy quilts that were made from scraps of old clothes, a patch from a dress, a sleeve from a shirt, a pocket from someone's favorite pair of pants, pieces of us stitched together by hands that knew how to make something from nothing. Today, I want to tell you about the woman who made those quilts that kept us covered in the cold days. My great aunt, Sis Leigh, a woman born close enough to slavery to touch it. A woman who spoke through fabric when words wouldn't come. A woman who had no children of her own, but she covered an entire community in fabric. I wonder if you can remember a time when you were cold, really, really cold, and someone covered you, not just with a blanket, but with love that was invisible. That's what those quote quilts represented. And the woman who made them, she's someone I'm just now beginning to understand. Great Aunt Cicely was my grandmother's half sister. She was short and dark, like the character Cicely Tyson played in that movie. She was wrinkled, head always covered. She was humble. She wore the clothes of slaves: the dress, the top coat or apron, the shoes. She had the walk too. Her hands were always clasped together behind her back, like she was studying, thinking, trying to figure out what to say, like she was preparing the words that might never, ever find language. Her face held what I can only describe in my own words as a no look. It was an expression that said, I am here, I am somewhere, but I'm not sure where. No smile, no joy, no frown either. I don't ever remember her laughing. I don't remember her face ever holding real joy. She would inhale this life while exhaling her own world, coexisting with the community. They said she was born a slave, but looking back now, I find that hard to believe. In the 1970s, when I was a little girl, that timeline doesn't quite add up. Maybe it was her mother who was born a slave. Maybe that's what they meant to say. They weren't always, right. Who knows? It's hard to say for certain, but this I know: she was close enough to touch it. Slavery wasn't history to Aunt Cicely. It lived in her body, in her silence, in that uncertain look. It was part of her story. She lived down the opposite end of South George Street in our Farmington town, in what seemed to be a massive home. It sat up high with a closed in porch, just her and her husband Lee living there. She raised chickens, kept her own garden, made all of her own clothes. She was self sufficient in ways that we've lost today. She had skills, land, a home, things her mother or maybe she herself once had no right to claim. And yet, Every fall before winter came, Aunt Sis Leigh would make the walk to our house with her husband Lee beside her. He was a big, giant kind of a man. Oh, I can remember. I can see it in my mind's eye. Those big, gigantic hands. Oh, wow. And he would help her deliver those quilts. If memory serves me correctly, they brought them in a pull wagon. If I'm wrong, maybe he drove them over because quilts made from scraps can be pretty heavy. Heavy with fabric from pieces of our stories, heavy with history. And they were valuable then, and they're significant now. Those quilts kept us warm in the winter. I remember a lot of blue in them, yarn sticking up in patterns, stripes, a solid border color, always framed the entire quilt. The back was always solid, stable, dependable, but the top, it was always scattered with the community's stories and secrets. I'm sure a patch from someone's dress, a sleeve from a shirt, a pocket from a pair of pants, the color from somebody's favorite something. Everybody's stories mixed together, stitched into one covering. When my grandmother passed, I was supposed to get one of those quilts, but I never did. But here's what I understand now. What the child in me couldn't see then. Great Aunt Sis Leigh had no children of her own. Yes, yet she thought about others. She was the one who covered us in fabric. We didn't have money to go downtown to buy a quilt or a blanket, a new blanket. We had scraps, small pieces of our stories that we bagged and saved. And great Aunt Cicely and her husband, Uncle Lee, they would come down and collect those scraps. She took what we thought was nothing and she made something that kept us nice and warm and alive in the winter. Did anyone ever think about her? Did anyone thank her? Or did we just take those quilts, wrap our little bodies in them, and just fall off to sleep? I wonder now if she was hiding our story in those quilts, our secrets, our history, stitching them into patterns we slept with at night to remind us of who we were, even when we didn't know we needed reminding. She took the fragments, the things we were ready to throw away, and she said, "This is important. This is worth keeping. This will cover you. This needs to be saved." The scripture says she seeks wool and flax and works with willing hands. She makes bed coverings for herself. Her clothing is fine linen and purple. She opens her hand to the poor and reaches out her hands to the needy. Proverbs 31:13. Great Aunt Cicely had willing hands, hands that had known work, hands that moved behind her back, like she was still figuring out what to say, but her hands spoke. They said, "You're not forgotten. You're not alone. I will cover you. You are worth saving. You do have value." They hold our stories, the ones we didn't mind sharing and the ones that we couldn't share with anyone. The quilts she left behind, they're our legacy. They reiterate our stories. I still don't have one of those quilts, but I have this memory of a woman who walked down South George Street carrying quilts made from scraps of fabric she made with her own hands. A woman who saw our scraps, our raggedy scraps, worn old clothes, and pieces as pieces of our story and said they were worth saving. A woman who covered us even when no one thought to cover her. That's the lesson Great Aunt Cicely left behind. The smallest pieces of our lives are worth saving. And when we gather them together with willing hands, we create something that can help a whole community stay warm with pieces of our stories and our secrets. Until the next time, remember to leave the porch light on because someone is always coming home to memory.